The code on the door worked when I got there. Later that night, someone else used that same code to get in. And when I shouted that they had the wrong room, the man on the other side answered like I was the one who wasn't supposed to be there. He said, "No, this is my room." I should have left the second I saw the place. This happened in October of 2021 when I flew to Phoenix for a grappling tournament and rented a cheap studio for one night. I booked it too fast, showed up alone, and knew almost immediately I'd made a bad call. The street was quiet in the wrong way. Most of the houses were dark. A few had bars on the windows, and the whole block had that dead, shut-in feeling like nobody wanted to be outside after dark. Then I checked the listing again. The host's profile photo wasn't even a person. It was a picture of a cactus, and the only message they'd sent me was the keypad code and a short line telling me to let myself in. That was it. The room was a tiny studio attached to the side of a house. One wall connected to the main property, and there was only one door in or out. Then I looked at the code they'd given me. It was way too simple. I remember standing there with my bag still on my shoulder, staring at the keypad and thinking, anybody could guess this. I thought about turning around and finding a hotel. I didn't. I locked the door, put my bag down, and told myself I was just being paranoid. For a while, nothing happened. Then around 9:30 that night, I was half asleep when I heard tapping on the window right next to the bed. I opened my eyes and stayed still. The curtains were shut. I couldn't see anything outside. Then it came again. Tap, 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 light, slow, careful. I said, "Hello," loud enough for whoever was out there to hear me. It stopped. No footsteps. No voice. Nothing. I kept looking at the curtain. About a minute later, the tapping came back. Same spot. Same pace. That's when I grabbed my phone and messaged the host asking if they were outside. No answer. So I sat there in the dark with my phone in my hand, just listening. It took almost an hour for them to reply. They said they had come by to leave water but thought I was asleep, so they left. That text made no sense. If it was really them, why tap on the window instead of the door? Why stand outside that window at all? And why wait nearly an hour to answer me unless they had to think about what to say? After that, I wasn't even thinking about sleep anymore. I thought about leaving, but I didn't want to unlock that door. So I stayed where I was and listened. Maybe 40 minutes later, I heard movement outside again. Closer this time, near the entrance. Then I heard the keypad beep, beep, beep. Someone was entering the code. The first try failed. Then right away they started again. More beeps. Then the lock clicked open. I froze. Then the handle moved. I jumped out of bed, ran to the door, and slammed it shut just as it started opening inward. Somebody was pushing it open from the outside. I threw my weight against it and yelled, "What are you doing? This is my room. Get away from the door." There was a pause. Then a man's voice, calm as anything, said, "No, this is my room." He didn't sound confused. He sounded irritated, like I'd answered when I wasn't supposed to. I started shouting that I was calling 911. I said it loud on purpose so he could hear every word while I stayed pressed against the door. After that, everything went quiet. When the police got there, I told them exactly what happened. What got to me was how fast they seemed to understand it. One of the officers looked at the house, looked at the host, then told me, "Pack your stuff. You're leaving tonight." Not, "Do you want to leave?" Not, "Let's figure this out." Just pack and go. Like staying there wasn't even a question. The host came out while I was grabbing my things, and their story changed every time they opened their mouth. First, it was a misunderstanding. Then it was someone else who had access to the property. Then suddenly, they didn't know who it was. One of the officers just stared at them for a second, then looked at me and said, "Get your ride here now." That was enough for me. I left with my bag half zipped and didn't feel even a little safe until we were well away from that street. I never saw who was at the window. I never saw who opened the door, but they had the code, and they used it like they expected it to work. I still think about the way he said it, not like he was at the wrong room, like I was. And the more I think about it, the less it feels like I interrupted a mistake. It feels like I got awake just before something was supposed to happen. Something hit the side of the cabin so hard it shook the bed under me. A few seconds later, it hit again from somewhere else. And before the night was over, my boyfriend and I were in the loft with knives in our hands, listening to something move around us in the dark. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and this happened in the summer of 2016 when my boyfriend, Ryan, and I rented an off-grid cabin in rural Vermont. The place was deep off a dirt road with no power, no close neighbors, and no help anywhere nearby. The host's house was the only other place on that road, and she was gone for the weekend. In daylight, the cabin looked cozy. At night, it felt exposed. It was one room with a loft and big screened sections along multiple walls. Fine when the sun was up, not fine once it got dark. We got there in the afternoon, made dinner, lit candles, and tried to enjoy it. By around 10 o'clock, I was exhausted and went up to the loft while Ryan stayed outside for a cigarette. I'd only been half asleep maybe 20 minutes when something slammed into the cabin. Hard. Before I could even sit up, Ryan called from below, asking if that had been me. I asked if it had been him. He said no. At first, we both tried to explain it away. A branch, an animal, something falling. Then it hit again. Different side of the cabin. This time there was a dragging sound with it. I came down from the loft just as Ryan came back inside. He was trying to stay calm, but I could tell he was uneasy now. I asked him what he thought it was. He said, "I don't know," then added quieter, "I thought I heard footsteps." That was enough. While we stood there listening, we heard a slow scrape along the outside wall. Our car was parked far enough away that getting to it meant stepping out into the dark and crossing open ground. Ryan grabbed a hunting knife and a thick piece of firewood and told me to take every sharp thing I could find and get back into the loft. I didn't want to leave him down there, but he looked at the screened walls and said, "If somebody comes through one of those, I need room to move." I took the kitchen knives and climbed back up. Ryan stayed below for another minute and called out, "Hello?" Nothing answered. Then after a stretch of silence, the scraping came back louder than before. Right after that came footsteps. Slow, moving along one side of the cabin, then around the corner, then along the next. Ryan backed away from the windows, came up into the loft, and pulled the ladder up after him. Then he said, "I don't like that they can see in and we can't see out." That was the first time he said they. After that, it kept shifting. Footsteps circling the cabin, a bang from another wall. Later, near the window below us, a shorter scrape, then two light taps. Ryan leaned toward me and said very quietly, "Don't go near the edge." A little after that, we heard something at the front door, not pounding, just the handle moving once, slowly, then stopping. Then came the stove pipe. Something outside grabbed it and rattled it hard enough to make the metal shudder. Ryan stared up toward the sound and whispered, "They're looking for another way in." We barely spoke after that. We just sat there in the loft with knives in our hands, staring down into the dark, waiting for the screen to tear or the door to give. But it never happened. No voices, no yelling. Just the footsteps, the scraping, the handle, the stove pipe, and the silence in between. Finally, near dawn, the woods started sounding normal again. Birds. A rooster somewhere in the distance. That gray early light coming through the cabin. And then it stopped, all of it. We waited until it was fully light before climbing down. My car was still there. Nothing looked damaged. Ryan checked around the cabin for footprints, scrape marks, anything clear. There was almost nothing. I messaged the host after we left and told her what happened. She answered almost right away. She said it was probably a porcupine. That was it. No questions, no surprise, just that. Ryan still thinks it was probably some local creep trying to scare us. Maybe. But whatever was outside that cabin wasn't trying very hard to get in. It sounded like it was waiting for us to come out. Something tapped on the window the night before my interview. The next night, I saw the person standing behind the house. And on the last night, I heard that same sound again, this time from inside the closet. My name is Daniel Mercer, and this happened in the fall of 2021 when I rented a small house outside Tucson, Arizona for a job interview. I picked it because it was cheap and close enough to where I needed to be. What I didn't think about was how far out it actually was. The house sat at the end of a dead road with open desert behind it. No real neighbors. No lights past the property line. At night, it felt like everything just stopped a few feet beyond the walls. The first night, I was in the living room around 9:00 p.m., going over interview questions on my laptop. That's when I heard it. A single tap on the window beside me. Not a knock, just a light, precise tap. I turned slowly and looked at the glass. All I could see was my reflection and darkness behind it. I stayed there for a second, listening, waiting to see if it would happen again. It didn't. I got up anyway, walked over, stood close enough to the window that my reflection almost blocked everything else. I tried to look past it, out into the yard, but there was nothing to focus on. Just empty space and that feeling that if something was out there, I wouldn't see it until it was too late. After a few seconds, I stepped back, told myself it was nothing, but I didn't sit in that spot again for the rest of the night. The next day, I had the interview. It went well. I spent the afternoon driving around, eating out, trying to relax. By the time I got back to the house, I'd mostly shaken it off. Until that night. I was inside watching TV when I heard it again. The same tap, same window. This time I was already moving before I even fully processed it. I checked the front windows. Nothing. Opened the front door. Empty. Then I walked through the house and stepped out onto the back porch. The desert behind the house was completely black past the edge of the light. No movement, no sound. Then a click, soft, clear, human. It came from somewhere out there just beyond where the light reached. I didn't move. A second later it came again, same spot, and that's when I saw them. There was a figure standing out there, not far. Just far enough that the darkness swallowed most of them. Dark clothes, still, facing the house. I stared for a second, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. Then I took a step forward and immediately stopped. Something about the way they were standing didn't feel right. Not shifting, not reacting, just there. I raised my voice and told them they were on private property. The second I said it, they turned and walked away. Fast, not confused, not hesitant, just gone into the dark. I stayed on the porch longer than I should have. Then I went back inside and locked everything again. The third night was my last one there. I stayed up late on my laptop, trying not to think about it too much. Eventually, I turned everything off, lay back, and let the room go dark. And almost immediately, I heard it. That same click, but it wasn't outside. It came from inside the room. From the closet. I didn't move at first, I just looked. The closet door was open slightly, just enough to see the darkness inside. For a second, nothing happened. No movement, no sound. Then another click, closer from inside. That's when I moved. I got off the bed and out of that room as fast as I could, ran through the house, got into my car, locked the doors, and called 911 from the driveway. While I was on the phone, I kept staring at the house, waiting for someone to walk out. No one did. A patrol car showed up a few minutes later. The officer went inside with me while we checked the place. Small house. Nowhere obvious to hide. No one there, but I didn't stay. I packed everything and left that night. Later, I contacted the host and the rental platform. I got part of my money back. I never got an explanation. No broken locks. No forced entry. Nothing missing. Just that same sound. Outside the first night. Out in the desert the second. And inside the closet the third. The host told me it was probably an animal. Said it like it was normal. Like she'd said it before. I don't know what was in that house, but I know one thing. Whatever was outside those first 2 nights didn't leave. It just got closer. At 2:03 a.m., our bedroom door opened, and our host was standing in the living room holding a knife. We never heard him come in, and we were miles from anyone who could help us. My name is Emily Carter, and this happened in October of 2022 when my husband, Daniel, and I rented a remote cabin in the mountains of West Virginia. We thought being alone out there would feel peaceful. It didn't. By the time we reached the cabin, fog had rolled in so thick the road disappeared behind us. The trees, the sky, everything past the headlights was just gone. When we stepped out of the car, it felt like we'd driven somewhere we weren't supposed to be. Inside, the place looked normal. Fireplace, old wood furniture, small kitchen, and a welcome basket waiting on the counter. There was a handwritten note on top. "Welcome, Daniel and Emma." I stopped reading. Daniel leaned in. "Nice," I kept going. "I restocked the oak wood for you. And Emma, I saw from your profile picture that you like fall colors. I left something on the mantle." I looked up. Fresh maple leaves were arranged across the stone. I didn't like how specific that was. "Daniel, how would he know my name?" "You booked it," he said. "It's probably on your profile." "It's not like that." I didn't like how closely someone would have had to look to notice something like that. Daniel shrugged it off. I didn't. Then we heard it, a sharp crack. Outside, another one, wood splitting. Daniel sat up. "You hear that?" It came again, same rhythm, too steady. We went to the window, nothing, just fog pressed against the glass. Another strike, closer. Daniel moved fast this time, checked the front door. Locked, back door, locked. Another crack, right outside, close enough I felt it in the floor. We both stopped moving, just listening, waiting. Then nothing, no footsteps. No voice, just silence. We didn't sleep. The next morning I called the host, Arthur Hayes, asked a simple question, then said, "It's really quiet out here. Anyone live nearby?" "Nope," he said immediately. "Closest place is about 5 miles down. You've got the whole mountain." 5 miles, I hung up. Daniel didn't say anything. He didn't need to. That afternoon we heard it again. Not chopping, movement. Slow steps along the side of the cabin. Daniel went toward the window, then stopped short. Didn't get close. "Someone's out there," he said. We stood there and listened. 1 step, then nothing. We didn't go outside after that. That night the storm came. Rain slammed against the cabin. Wind pushed through the trees hard enough to shake the walls. Daniel fell asleep. I didn't. A little after 2:00 a.m. I heard it. A soft metallic click from the front of the house. I held my breath. Then a floorboard inside, slow, close. I grabbed Daniel. "Someone's in the house." He was awake instantly. We both heard it. Another step, right outside the door. Daniel reached under his pillow and pulled the gun. No hesitation. He moved to the door, opened it and hit the light. The room snapped bright. And there he was, Arthur, standing in the living room, soaking wet, holding one of the kitchen knives. And in that moment, everything lined up. The chopping, the way it got closer, the silence after. He hadn't been out in the woods. He'd been right there the whole time. He turned toward us slowly, not surprised, not caught, just looking at us. Daniel raised the gun. "Drop it." Arthur glanced at it, then smiled. "I saw a light out by the tree line," he said calmly. "Thought someone might be snooping around. Door was unlocked, so I came in." "The door wasn't unlocked," He had a key. Daniel didn't argue. On the ground. Arthur set the knife down. Keys, Daniel said. I grabbed them. We didn't pack, didn't think. We backed out, ran into the storm, and got to the car. Daniel didn't look back. Police met us down the mountain. We told them everything. The note, the chopping, him inside with a knife. One of the officers just nodded, like he'd heard something like this before. They spoke to Arthur. Nothing happened. We never went back. Didn't get our things, didn't want them. The listing is still up. Same photos, same 5-star reviews, same thoughtful host. He didn't break in, he didn't rush us. He was already inside, just waiting for the lights to go out. If you enjoy true stories like this, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments, what do you think he was really planning that night?